This video is going to show you how to seam shoulders with a lace pattern like the Mohair Intentions Sweater. So taking the front panel and the back panel of your shoulders, you want to line them up. And this is what it looks like when it's finished. It's seamless, but the lace stitch kind of matches. So it's a little different from seaming shoulders that are just knit and stockinette or garter stitch. You're not necessarily going to have perfectly lined stitches to be able to seam through. So switching this around so you can see a little bit better. I'm going to start with the first knit stitch on one shoulder, always making sure that they're lined up evenly. And then I'm going to take the second on the other side. So when I have a yarn over, the knit stitch is actually going to kind of cross over itself. And I will show you that here. So here's a yarn over, and the knit stitch isn't quite the same, but you want to make sure you're grabbing two sides, not just one strand of yarn. So again, here you can kind of see it sort of creates a V, but in an opposite way. So it kind of crosses over itself. And then again here, not quite the same V that you're usually used to. Here it is a normal knit, so that's an easy one to pick up. Oh, never mind. It is a crossed over V. So you definitely want to be paying attention when you're doing this. You want to make sure everything lines up. So here it's a normal V, so I'm going to pass through it as normal. So you kind of have to do a little guesswork to figure out where that knit stitch is. So that one is a normal knit stitch, so I pass through as normal. Again, the V, but this V is actually crossed over itself because of the yarn over. So again here I have another crossed over V. And you're just going to repeat this along, always stopping to check to make sure that your shoulders are lined up. You definitely want to take your time with this. So here I have another yarn over. So I kind of, with the mohair, it's a little difficult, but definitely pulling up with your needle definitely helps. So checking, good. And you kind of want to pull on it too, make sure you're not bunching that shoulder seam too tight. So I have another crossed over V right here, right by that yarn over. Again, another one. So now I have a normal knit stitch, so I can go ahead and seam as normal. Again, same here. Now I have a yarn over, so it's going to be one of those crossed over V's. Oh, there we go. Crossed over V right here. I'm good on my length, pull a little bit. Yeah, it's definitely a little tricky with the mohair, but you want to definitely pull up. If you're finding you're only pulling up one strand, or you can tell that it's not lining up with the other side of the panel, don't worry about it. Just pass right through again and recheck with your lining up. So just checking to make sure I have enough stitches on both. Passing through a knit V. Crossed over V. A normal knit V. And the last knit over V. And then I'm going to pull, make sure it's not bunched up. And there we go. Now you have a beautiful seam in lace. So now I'm going to weave in that end, but I'm also going to close up this gap right here because of the mohair lace, just to make it a little easier for when I pick up my stitches for the sleeve. So I like to just pull my yarn end through and kind of create knots along as I weave it through the join of the two shoulder seams underneath. And this kind of creates a little bit more structure to the shoulder seam, but also make sure that the yarn end is secure. So I only do this about maybe a third of the way, and then I'll go ahead and cut that yarn end. And now you can see both seams are finished. However, on the neckline where I added to work my one shoulder, you have this yarn end. And sometimes if you knit a little too loose, you might have a little bit of a gap by your neckline. So I'm going to show you how to fix this. So I just passed through, and you want to make sure you don't pull too tightly. And there's that gap, so I'm going to pull it through one more time, kind of imitating that neckline. And then last time, just bringing it over. As you can see, I do this loosely. I definitely don't want to bunch it up, but now you can see the neckline is all seamless. And now to weave this in, which is a little bit more difficult, I'm going to create a knot. But to weave in your yarn ends on a lace, it's a little trickier because, you have the yarn overs, which creates an open space. So I kind of just go through the purl sections across, trying to weave in the ends in the sections where you would have knit the most, not through your yarn overs. So I also like to tug too. Make sure it's not pulling on that lace at all. And I'm going to create one last knot. And this one's going to be a double knot because I'm going to cut the yarn after this. So pulling that nice and tight, and you can see I pinch the fabric to make sure that the knot I'm pulling on doesn't pull on the lace itself. And now you have this little yarn over. You can cut this pretty short to the end because you have a few knots to make sure it stays secure.